don't expect that kind of stuff.
I'm not permitted.
No, I want to go.
These are tough questions.
No, I'm being interrogated again, and I don't want to do this anymore. Yes, I am.
Imagine a summer day that should have vanished into the ordinary. Errands, heat, a quick swim, a quiet drive home. And yet, by nightfall, a 5-year-old girl is gone, and the story of her final hours fractures into timelines that don't quite touch. No hospital staff who remember her. No park witnesses who saw her. No camera that caught her passing by. Back at a hilltop home, a door, a basement, a handful of minutes, and then silence. Not a scream anyone on scene reported, not a single footprint to follow, not a tire track to trace. 4 years later, there are thousands of tips, massive searches, expert teams, and still no definitive answer to a brutally simple question. Where did Summer go, and when did the truth first bend? Tonight, we rebuild the day hour by hour, testimony by testimony, and test each claim against the one thing that doesn't care about feelings or fear: the clock. Because if the timeline cracks, the narrative does too. Part 1. The morning that refuses to hold. The morning of June 15th, 2021 should have been uneventful. A grandmother's medical appointment, a few errands, a brief stop at the park, a child restless in the summer heat. These are the kinds of ordinary hours that disappear from memory because nothing extraordinary happens in them. Yet for the disappearance of Summer Wells, those hours have become some of the most scrutinized in the entire investigation. They are the hours when she was last supposedly seen outside her family's home. They are also the hours that, when examined carefully, begin to dissolve. The hospital appointment. According to Candace Bly, Summer's mother, the day began with a drive to Holston Valley Medical Center in Kingsport. Grandmother Candace Harrer had a knee appointment. Candace later told investigators that she drove her mother to the entrance, dropped her off, and waited in the parking lot with Summer. 2 hours in the summer heat, she said, just sitting in the car with her 5-year-old daughter. But this simple account leaves its first mark of doubt. Hospitals are not empty places. They are crowded, monitored, and filled with passing eyes. Cameras cover entrances and lots. Staff noticed children left in cars. Yet no one reported seeing Summer that morning. No security footage has been released to show her waiting. Not one employee, patient, or visitor recalled noticing her. If she was there, she passed invisibly through one of the most visible spaces in the city. Enter Hunter. Sometime that morning, Candace received a message from Hunter, a 15-year-old boy who lived nearby and had spent time with the family before. He asked to hang out. Candace picked him up, and from that moment, the day's movements gained an extra witness, or at least a witness with a perspective not entirely in line with hers. Hunter would later recall that Summer was in the back seat, pale, quiet, and lying across a gallon of milk. He described her as tired, not her usual self. Candace, by contrast, always painted the morning as routine, with Summer cheerful and normal. Their stories are not necessarily incompatible. Memory is imperfect, but their difference is stark. A questionable stop. After picking up Hunter, Candace stopped at his house. What happened there is contested. Hunter claimed she gave him a twisted tea, an alcoholic drink, and nicotine vapes. Candace denied this, calling him a liar. No receipts or surveillance footage have surfaced to verify either claim. The truth remains buried in contradiction. For Summer, the stop meant more waiting. By Hunter's account, she stayed in the car while the adults and teenager spoke. Again, no outside eyes confirmed her presence. The pattern was already forming. Every place she should have been visible, she was invisible instead. Walgreens and the clock. From there, they drove to Walgreens to pick up a prescription for grandmother Candace. The pharmacist told them it would take 25 to 30 minutes to prepare. This detail would become critical. because instead of waiting in the parking lot, Candace decided to use the time to drive to Warriors Path State Park, about 9 miles away. Walgreens itself offered another chance for confirmation. Pharmacies have staff, security systems, and customers. But like the hospital, no one remembered seeing Summer. No casual witness, no fleeting footage, another silent stop. The park video. Warriors. Path State Park, specifically the small pond known as Horse Pond, became the backdrop for one of the case's most haunting images. A short video of Summer in the water, struggling slightly to climb back up onto the edge. That clip was later uploaded to TikTok and quickly spread online. It is often described as the last moving image of her. But the video, powerful as it is, brings no certainty. No timestamp has ever been released to confirm it was filmed on June 15th. No metadata was provided to the public. And once again, no one outside the family and Hunter reported seeing them at the park. No parents, no children, no rangers. A public space in daylight. Yet it might as well have been empty, except for them. The timeline strains here. A round trip from Walgreens to the park and back is at least 20 to 25 minutes. That leaves little time for a swim, yet Candace described it as calm and unhurried. Either the stop was impossibly rushed, or the clock does not align with her memory. Back to Walgreens, back to the hospital. After the park, they returned to Walgreens to collect the prescription. Then they went back to Holston Valley to pick up grandmother Candace. 2 more public locations. 2 more opportunities for Summer to be noticed. Yet again, no one did. By noon, the group had reportedly cycled through 5 different public sites. Hospital, Hunter's home, Walgreens, the park, and the hospital again. Across all of them, there is no independent confirmation of Summer's presence. Not one camera, not one stranger, not even a blurred figure in the background of another family's day. The problem of absence. Most missing child cases provide anchors in the timeline. Shopkeepers who remember, neighbors who wave, clerks who hand over change. Small moments that place the child in the world before the disappearance. For Summer, those anchors are missing. Her presence exists only in the words of Candace, grandmother Candace, and Hunter. Everyone else, the machines, the staff, the bystanders, remain silent. This silence matters. If Summer was truly there, the lack of confirmation is unusual. If she wasn't, the timeline shifts dramatically. Could the TikTok video have been filmed days earlier and reused? Could something have happened before they returned home? The absence of proof does not answer those questions, but it demands that they be asked. A ghost in the narrative. By the time they drove back toward Ben Hill Road, the morning was over, but it had already become something else, a narrative without witnesses. Summer's name appears in every stop, but her face appears in none. Her mother says she was there, her grandmother says she was there, Hunter says she was there, but the world outside them is blank. And so the morning, meant to be simple, becomes fragile. It is the part of the day where Summer should have been most visible, but where she is least verifiable. By the time the family reached their home around midday, the questions had already begun. If no one outside the family saw her during the hours she was supposedly in public, then when was she last seen for certain? When was her presence undeniable? And at what point did she slip from fact into memory? Part 2. The 2 minutes that changed everything. If the morning of June 15th felt loose, unconfirmed, and strangely invisible, the afternoon was meant to bring the story home, to the hilltop on Ben Hill Road, where Summer was last reported alive. Yet here, where the setting should have narrowed, the timeline only collapses further. It is in these hours, between 3 and 4 p.m., that the disappearance truly takes shape. And according to her mother, it happened in less time than it takes to boil water. 2 minutes, no more. A routine afternoon. By mid-afternoon, Candace, her mother, and Summer had returned from errands. The 3 older Wells boys were inside the house, reportedly watching videos. The grandmother was resting near the camper, nursing her injured knee. Candace herself said she was outside with her daughter, working around flowers placed in pots near the camper. For a while, everything seemed normal, ordinary, quiet. Candace described Summer as helping in her own way, moving soil, touching plants, offering a child's energy to an adult's task. At some point, grandmother gave Summer a piece of candy. Then Summer asked to go back into the house to see her brothers. The walk to the porch. Candace has repeated this detail often. She personally walked Summer to the front of the house, saw her step onto the porch, and watched her enter the door. That image of a child walking into her own home has become the bedrock of her account. From there, Candace says she turned back to the camper only 20 feet away. Her mother needed help with a knee brace. 2 minutes, she insists, was all the time it took. Silence where there should be noise. When Candace returned and called for Summer, there was no reply. This struck her immediately as unusual. Summer, she said, always answered when called. She checked the main level of the home, looked down the stairs into the basement, and still heard nothing. The boys reportedly told her that Summer had gone downstairs to play, but when she looked, she wasn't there. This is the moment when panic began. Yet even panic leaves traces: rushed footsteps, raised voices, barking dogs, frantic movement. But according to every account available, the property remained eerily quiet. The flower detail. A strange inconsistency appeared early in the investigation. Candace repeatedly spoke of planting flowers that afternoon, but when the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation surveyed the scene, they noted only potted plants, no freshly turned soil, no new beds in the yard. Was this simply a slip of language, potted versus planted, or an indicator that the memory itself was uncertain? In a case where minutes matter, small details become magnified. The brothers' silence. Inside the house, 3 young boys were playing or watching videos. According to Candace, they acknowledged that their sister had come inside, but their statements have never been released publicly. Because of their age, their testimony is sealed. The world has no access to whether they confirmed her entry, whether they saw her, or whether they noticed anything unusual in those final minutes. This silence creates a void. If the boys truly saw her, then she was alive inside the home just minutes before vanishing. If they didn't, or if they were asleep, as some unverified reports suggest, then Candace's claim stands alone. The basement door. The basement is a key part of this story. According to Candace, Summer may have gone downstairs. That basement includes an exterior door that opens onto a steep slope behind the house. Crucially, this door was reportedly left unlocked. If Summer exited through it, she could have wandered into the woods. If someone entered through it, they could have taken her. Either way, it is the only physical route that explains how a child could vanish from inside a home in minutes. But the evidence doesn't cooperate. Search dogs lost her scent only a short distance from the house. No footprints, no bent grass, no snapped twigs, no fabric, no discarded shoe. The ground offered nothing. For investigators, this was deeply unusual. Children leave traces, bare feet leave prints. Yet in this case, nothing remained. Dogs that didn't bark. Another detail often discussed is the family dog. Accounts vary, but in some versions the dog did not bark at the time of the disappearance. This matters because an unfamiliar intruder approaching the house should have triggered a reaction. The absence of noise, no barking, no thuds, no scream, makes the possibility of an outside abductor harder to support. The 2 minutes in context. Candace has insisted the disappearance happened in under 2 minutes. To investigators, this is a razor-thin window. For an abductor to arrive silently, reach the house, take a child, and leave within that time would require extraordinary precision. For Summer to wander off alone in those minutes would also require extraordinary speed, quietly slipping away, barefoot, across rough terrain without leaving a trace. This is why the 2 minutes are so haunting. They stretch plausibility, no matter how you interpret them. Whether you imagine an intruder, an accident, or a wandering child, each scenario collides with the lack of noise, the lack of tracks, the lack of evidence. Search efforts. When law enforcement arrived later, they launched a massive search. Helicopters circled overhead. Dogs swept the area. Volunteers combed the woods. Drones scanned from above. And yet, no trace was found. Even experienced searchers remarked how unusual it was for a child to leave behind nothing at all. Not a piece of clothing, not a footprint in the mud, not a scent trail that held. Some experts later suggested that contamination from early searchers may have muddied the dog trails. But even if so, the silence of the initial 2 minutes remains. If Summer walked away, why didn't the boys see her? If someone took her, how did they escape unseen? Memory under pressure. One explanation investigators must always weigh is human memory itself. Under stress, details warp. Minutes can feel like seconds or hours. A mother helping her injured parent might lose track of time without realizing it. What felt like 2 minutes may have been 20. But if so, the timeline expands, and with it, more questions. What happened in those missing minutes? Who saw what? Why is there no corroboration? A window that cannot be sealed. From 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., a child disappeared from her home in daylight. 5 people were on the property. Not one of them reported hearing or seeing anything decisive. The 3 boys remained silent. The grandmother has offered little detail. Candace's story is consistent but uncorroborated. This hour is the beating heart of the mystery. It is a window that refuses to close because nothing seals it. Not evidence, not witnesses, not records. Just memory, raw and fragile, left to carry the weight of explanation. The last known moments. And so we return to the image. A child on the porch, walking into her house, never to be seen again. A mother who turned away for minutes, then turned back to silence. A basement door, unlocked, leading to woods that yielded no footprints. And a clock that insists this all happened in less time than it takes to notice. The 2 minutes that changed everything are not just a gap in the timeline. They are the entire case. Without evidence to explain them, the story of Summer Wells will always hover in uncertainty. Whether she wandered, whether she was taken, whether something else occurred, those minutes hold the answer. And yet, 4 years later, they remain unbroken. 2 minutes stretched into forever. Part 3: The Scream, the Call, and the Unfinished Theories. The hours between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. on June 15, 2021, are among the most disputed in the Summer Wells case. By this time, she had already vanished from her mother's sight. Searches had not yet begun. And what happened in those 60 minutes? What was heard, what was not heard, what was done, and what was left undone continues to divide investigators and the public alike. The neighbors claim. At around 5:30 p.m., Jody Sue Brown, a neighbor who lived downhill from the Wells property, later reported hearing something unusual. She described it as a piercing, high-pitched sound, like an animal in distress, but not an animal. Her teenage children also claimed they heard it. The sound was brief, she said, lasting only a moment, and then it stopped. At the time, she dismissed it. But later, when she learned of Summer's disappearance, the memory grew heavier. To her, it sounded like a scream. If accurate, it could mark the very moment Summer vanished. But law enforcement did not embrace the claim. After multiple interviews, the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office stated that they found no evidence linking the sound to the case. No other neighbors confirmed hearing it. No physical signs supported it. Officially, the scream was noted and then set aside. Sound in the woods. Why does the scream matter so much? Because sound, in a case without evidence, becomes a kind of phantom witness. But rural terrain complicates things. Hills and trees warp acoustics. An echo can travel oddly. A child's laugh can resemble a cry. An animal's call can mimic distress. Without a recording, sound is memory, and memory is fragile. Yet the timing of Jody Sue's account is critical. If she was right, and something happened around 5:30, then the timeline shifts. Candace has always said she discovered Summer missing around 6 and called 911 at 6:26. A scream at 5:30 would mean the crisis began earlier than her version suggests. The 6:26 call. What we do know for certain is that the official 911 call was placed at 6:26 p.m. By then, Summer had been gone for at least 20 to 30 minutes, possibly longer. That call is the only timestamp confirmed beyond dispute. Everything before it relies on personal recollection. Between the moment Candace realized her daughter was missing and the time she dialed for help, there is a gap of at least 20 minutes. What happened in that gap remains unclear. Did she search the property? Did she call Don, Summer's father, who was reportedly at work? Did she alert the grandmother? None of these actions have been confirmed in public records. A quiet scene. When law enforcement arrived, they found a scene without chaos. There was no active search underway, no loud commotion, no neighbors already gathering. The atmosphere was strangely calm. In missing child cases, parents are often described running, shouting, calling for help long before police arrive. Here, officers encountered silence. This does not imply guilt. Shock can paralyze. Panic can mute. But it adds to the puzzle of why no one outside the property was drawn in earlier. If a scream had echoed downhill, why did no one respond? If panic had erupted at 6 o'clock, why was the scene quiet by 6:30? Competing theories. From these 60 minutes emerge the three dominant theories that still haunt the case. Wandering off. The unlocked basement door allowed Summer to slip outside. She walked barefoot into the woods and quickly became lost. But if so, where are the tracks? Why did the scent trail vanish within yards? Why did helicopters, drones, dogs, and volunteers find nothing across miles of terrain? Abduction. Don Wells has long believed someone came through that basement door, snatched Summer, and carried her away. He points to a dog trail that stopped at a bend in the road, suggesting a vehicle pickup. Yet investigators never confirmed this. No fingerprints, no tire tracks, no eyewitnesses. For an abduction to occur in daylight, silently, within minutes, without disturbing anyone, would require extraordinary luck or planning. Accident or concealment. The theory most often whispered online, that something happened within the family, an accident or incident, and panic led to concealment. Supporters point to the silence of those minutes, the delay in calling 911, and the lack of independent witnesses. But here too, evidence is absent. No signs of cleanup, no forensic traces, no confession. Each theory fits part of the puzzle, but leaves the rest blank. Wandering explains disappearance, but not silence. Abduction explains silence, but not lack of evidence. Concealment explains gaps, but not scale. How could a cover-up leave nothing for years? The weight of silence. The most striking feature of the 5:30 to 6:30 window is not what was reported, but what was not. The grandmother, who was present in the camper, has offered no detailed public account. The brothers, who were inside the house, remain silent under sealed testimony. Hunter, who might have clarified whether he was still there, disappeared from the conversation entirely. The father was at work and unreachable. That leaves only Candace's word and a disputed scream. For investigators, this is an impossible equation. With no independent corroboration, no evidence, and no verified timeline, every possibility remains open. Theories tested against the clock. When you test each possibility against the rigid structure of time, contradictions multiply. If Summer wandered, how far could she go in 20 minutes barefoot without a single mark? If abducted, how could an outsider approach silently with 5 people nearby, a dog on the property, and daylight still strong? If concealed, how could such an act leave no trace for dogs, drones, or investigators to uncover? The hour resists explanation because time does not lie, but memories do not align with it. A window of opportunity, or of mystery. What we know for sure, by 6:26, the call was made. By 7 o'clock, law enforcement was on site. By nightfall, helicopters and dogs scoured the land. Yet those first 60 minutes remain blank, resistant to proof. The scream may have been real or misheard. The delay may have been panic, or something else. The calm scene may reflect shock, or it may reflect foreknowledge. Without corroboration, each interpretation is possible, and none are provable. The end of the day. As dusk fell, the search widened. The property filled with volunteers, the woods filled with dogs, the air filled with blades of helicopters. And yet, the central hour of the case had already passed into shadow. No evidence preserved, no record created, no independent eyes to say exactly when and how Summer Wells disappeared. What remains is not proof, but paradox. A scream without confirmation, a disappearance without trace, a call without clarity, and theories that refuse to fit cleanly into the time they must occupy. This is why the 5:30 to 6:30 window is still the most painful gap in the timeline. It is the place where truth should live, and yet it is where silence still rules. 4 years later, the case of Summer Wells remains a riddle of missing minutes, unanswered questions, and silence that still weighs heavy. Was it a scream, a mistake, or something no one dares admit? The timeline holds the truth, but only if someone chooses to speak. Until then, we keep searching. Subscribe to Crime Wisp for deeper investigations, share your thoughts below, and help keep Summer's story alive.